Leia's hands trembled as they touched the cold, smooth floor of the royal court. The ground was made of white stone, polished so perfectly it reflected her face. She saw her own eyes in the surface tired, frightened, and full of shame. Around her stood tall figures in golden robes. Alien nobles watched in silence from their high seats. None of them blinked, none of them smiled. They only stared. To them, Leia was not a person. She was a lesson, a warning. She had spoken out last week. During a town meeting, she stood up and said the nobles were wrong to take more food from the outer villages. Her people were starving. She was just trying to help, but that was not allowed. On this planet, speaking against the nobles meant one. Think public shame. A loud voice echoed in the hall. It came from the High Judge, a tall alien with silver skin and glowing eyes. Leia of the Lowborn, you are sentenced to crawl through the royal court. Stripped of honor, stripped of name, stripped of pride. The guards pulled off the rough cloth covering her body and tossed it aside. She closed her eyes, her cheeks, burning, her soft skin, which glowed gently with the natural shine of her kind, now felt like it was burning under their stares. Crawl, the judge said. She obeyed. Not because she was weak, because she had no choice. Her knees hit the hard floor. The pain came quickly, but she bit her lip. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. She moved forward, one hand, then the other. Her knees scraped and slid. The court was long. The crowd watched from the side, silent like statues. She had never felt smaller in her life. And then something strange happened. A human entered the court. His boots echoed as he stepped forward. He wore a black coat with a red stripe across the chest. A translator device was clipped to his collar. He had short brown hair, calm eyes, and a look that didn't belong in this place. His name was Rick Carter. He was part of the trade delegation from Earth. Rick was here to sign a simple deal. Nothing political, just business. Wasn't expecting to see something like this. He stopped, right in the middle of the court. His eyes met hers. She looked away, quickly, thinking he would just keep walking like the others, but he didn't. Instead, took a deep breath, stepped forward, and crouched beside her. "Hey," he said softly, voice low and kind. "You don't have to do this." Leia froze. Guards stepped forward, weapons ready. The nobles gasped. Rick ignored them. He took off his coat and gently draped it over her shoulders. She flinched, not used to kindness. Then, carefully, he put one arm under her knees and another behind her back. Before anyone could stop him, he lifted her up. She was light like holding a bird. "Put her down," the judge shouted. Rick stood tall, holding Leia close to his chest. "No," he said simply. One word, quiet but firm. The guards pointed their weapons at him. He didn't move. He didn't show fear. "She broke your law," the judge said. "Maybe," Rick answered. "But your law's broken." The court was stunned. No one had ever talked back to the nobles like that, especially not a visitor. Rick turned and walked toward the exit. The guards didn't stop him. They weren't sure what to do. Shooting a human diplomat could start a war. And this human, he looked like he would fight the whole planet if he had to. Leia stayed quiet in his arms. She couldn't understand. Why would a stranger risk everything for someone like her? They reached the outer doors. Rick didn't stop. He walked down the palace steps, past reporters and watchers, past flying drones and cameras. People whispered, but no one dared speak too loudly. He carried her all the way to his ship, once inside. He laid her gently on a soft bed in the medical room. "You're safe now," he said, his voice calm. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just a small sob. Tears ran down her cheeks. She wasn't crying because she was scared anymore. She was crying because someone had finally seen her, not as a tool, not as a traitor, not as a voice to silence, but as a person. Rick sat beside her, handed her a water bottle, and waited. He didn't ask anything. He didn't expect thanks. He just stayed. For the first time in her life, Leia felt something warm inside her chest. Hope. Leia sat in the quiet corner of Rick's ship, wrapped in a soft blanket. The human coat still rested beside her. It smelled like dust, metal, and something warm. She kept touching it without thinking. It reminded her of the moment everything changed. Rick walked in holding a small tray, placed it gently on the table beside her. It had bread, fruit, and a cup of warm liquid that smelled sweet. "You should eat," he said. "You've been through a lot." She looked at the food, then at him. She still didn't understand this human. People didn't do what he did, not on her world, not for someone like her. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why, what?" he asked, pulling a chair across from her. "Why did you help me?" Rick paused. Then he leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "Because what they did was wrong," he said. "No one deserves to be treated like that. Not for speaking the truth." She blinked, surprised. "You don't know me?" "I don't have to," Rick said. "I just know what I saw." Layra lowered her eyes. "We'll be in danger now. They don't forgive people who break their rules." Rick gave a small smile. "Yeah, I figured, but I'm not too worried." "Humans don't scare easy." She let out a small breath. Not quite a laugh, but close. Outside the ship, news of what happened was already spreading. Footage had leaked. Someone from the court had sent a recording to the outer networks. It showed everything. Layra crawling, the nobles watching, and Rick lifting her up and walking away. The galaxy was watching now. Some praised Rick's courage. Others said he had no right to interfere. Debates started on news panels, social feeds, and council halls. But deep in the outer colonies, something else was happening. People began to whisper her name. Layra. The girl who had stood up to the nobles. The girl who was picked up by a human. Rick was called into a private message from his command center on Earth. He sat in the control room while Layra listened from the hallway. A gray-haired man on the screen stared at him. "Rick, what were you thinking?" "I saw someone being humiliated," Rick said calmly, "so I stopped it." "You're not on Earth, Rick. You broke their law. We can't afford trouble with the council." "Maybe it's time someone did." There was a long pause. The man on the screen sighed. "You've made things complicated, but we're getting messages, a lot of them. From people who are grateful, then maybe it was worth it." The call ended. Layra walked in. Her posture was still careful, but something had changed in her eyes. Less fear, more curiosity. "You could go home," she said. "Leave me here. The nobles wouldn't chase you far." Rick shook his head. "No, you're not just a story to me. You're a person. Until you're safe, I'm staying right here." Layra looked away, her hands clutching the blanket tighter. She didn't know what to say. A few hours later, the ship received a signal from orbit. A royal vessel had arrived. The nobles were demanding Rick hand Layra over, or face arrest. The message was short: return the traitor, or be hunted. Rick leaned back in his seat. "Well, that's not very friendly." Layra stood behind him. "They'll come with force. Let them." Rick said. She touched his shoulder gently. "You don't have to fight for me." "Maybe not," he said, "but I want to." They spent the night preparing. Rick's ship wasn't a warship, but it was strong, fast, and full of tools. Layra watched him work, fixing wires, checking shields, and loading supplies. He moved with calm focus, like someone used to danger. She finally asked, "Were you a soldier?" Rick nodded. "Once. Before I joined trade missions." "Why did you stop?" "Got tired of fighting," he said, "but sometimes I guess you can't avoid it." She nodded slowly. "You're different from the others." "Most humans are," he said with a small grin. In the morning, the royal ship sent another message, gave one final warning. Rick didn't answer. Instead, he opened a channel to the galactic public. His voice was calm and clear. "This is Rick Carter. Picked up someone who was being punished for speaking the truth. I won't apologize for it, and I won't hand her over. If you come for her, you come for both of us." His words echoed across networks. Millions saw the broadcast. Some cheered. Others stayed silent. But something had shifted. Layra watched him from behind the screen. For the first time, her eyes filled, not with fear, but with something else. Pride. The royal ship hovered in orbit above the human vessel, its sharp wings glowing with blue lights. It was bigger, louder, and armed for war. Inside, commanders gave orders. They expected fear. They expected surrender. But Rick's ship stayed quiet. Unmoved inside, Rick and Lara stood by the window. Watching the enemy's ship through the glass. They won't wait long, she said. Then we won't either, Rick replied. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but the skills were still there. He knew how to defend, how to delay, and most of all, how to draw attention. And now the whole galaxy was watching. Messages came in every hour. Humans from other planets offered help. Even a few alien traders offered to jam signals or confuse. Royal tracking systems. Something was happening, something bigger than just Rick or Lara. Rick turned to her. Are you ready for what comes next? Lara nodded. I was broken before. Now I feel like I'm becoming whole again, thanks to you. No, he said softly. You did that yourself, she smiled. Just a little. Rick opened a secret compartment beneath the floor and pulled out a small device. It was a beacon. Not just any beacon, this one sent a message to a network of independent captains who owed Rick favors. Some were smugglers. Some were former soldiers like him. All of them had their own reasons to distrust the noble systems. He pushed the button. They'll come, Lara asked. Rick shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. But at least they'll hear. As the hours passed, Lara spent her time in the training room. Rick showed her how to defend herself. Not with weapons, just movement, balance, and timing. She learned fast. She had always been smart, but no one ever let her fight before. Now, she moved with purpose. That night, while Rick checked the engine room, Lara sat alone in the ship's lounge. She thought about her old life days spent hiding, watching nobles take and take, waiting for someone else to change things. Now everything was different. Her image had been shared across star systems, not as a symbol of shame, but of strength. The message came through the ship's system. Leia opened it. It was from another alien girl, young, scared. Her voice shook as she spoke. I saw what they did to you. They did the same to my sister. She didn't survive. But you stood again? Thank you. Lara's fingers trembled. She replied simply, You're not alone anymore. The next morning, 3 ships appeared on the edge of the system. Now, none were official. No flags, no markings. No, just old ships with sharp teeth and fast engines. One by one, they sent the same message. Rick, we got your signal. You stood up. Now we will too. Rick looked at Lara. Me seems we're not the only ones tired of crawling. By midday, more ships arrived. Small ones. Fighters. Freighters. Even a few old Earth Patrol. Ships were tired, but still strong. They all formed a rough circle around Rick's ship, standing between him and the royal cruiser. The nobles didn't expect this. They sent a warning. This is not your fight. Leave now, or be destroyed. But no ship moved. Then a voice came. Throcum strong. And familiar. It was the same gray-haired man from Earth, who had once scolded Rick. This is Admiral Jensen, he said. I'm not speaking for Earth. I'm speaking as a man. If you fire on that girl, you fire on all of us. Rick smiled. Didn't know you had it in you. You inspired my daughter, Jensen said. She saw the broadcast. She wants to. Help. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath. In the royal ship, the nobles shouted at each other. Some wanted to fire.
Ow.
Others wanted to retreat. Their system was built on fear and now it was crumbling. Inside Rick's ship, Lara walked to the control deck and stood beside Rick. What now? She asked. Now. Rick said, now we wait. But there was no attack. Instead, the royal cruiser powered down its weapons, and then it turned. The ship left orbit, silent, defeated. Rick and Lara stared at the screen. They're running, she whispered. Rick nodded. They know they've lost the crowd, crossed the galaxy. Screens lit up with the moment. The image of the royal ship fleeing while hundreds of smaller ships stood united became history. News anchors spoke of rebellion, of unity, of a girl who once crawled and now stood taller than a fleet. Lara sat down slowly, trying to understand it all. It's not over, she said. No, Rick agreed, but it's a start. and somewhere deep in space, hope began to grow. The days after the royal ship left were filled with new energy. Across many planets, alien voices whispered stories of Lyra and Rick. They talked about courage, about standing up, about hope. What started as a quiet rebellion became a flame. Spreading fast, Rick's ship became a safe place. Refugees, rebels, and those tired of the nobles' control came to join. Lyra, once a prisoner of shame, found herself surrounded by friends. She was no longer alone. One day a messenger arrived with a sealed package. Inside was a simple device, a communicator from the outer colonies. A voice came through, young and trembling but strong. Lyra, your people need you. The villages are starving. The nobles still take everything. We want to stand, but we're afraid. Lyra held the device tightly. Her heart ached. She remembered the hunger she once felt. The cold nights, the empty tables. Tell them, she said to Rick. I will go back. I will help them. Rick nodded. I'll be with you. They planned quietly. Rick's ship could not bring an army, but it could carry ideas, tools, and hope. Lyra trained every day. She learned to use the communicator, to speak clearly, to lead. Rick taught her about human history, about revolutions and peace, about strength and kindness. One evening, Lyra stood on the ship's deck, looking at the stars. Do you think I can really change things? She asked. Rick smiled. I don't just think it. I know it. Soon, the ship traveled to the outer colonies. Lyra stepped off with a small team. The villages welcomed her like a hero. She spoke to crowds, sharing stories of courage. She told them, you are not weak. You are not alone. But the nobles heard of this. They sent troops to stop her. Rick and his allies warned the villages. There would be battles ahead, but the people were ready. In the first fight, Lyra stood at the front. She did not carry weapons, but her voice was strong. She called for peace, for justice. Many listened. Some fought back. The battle was fierce. But the villagers were brave. With help from Rick's friends, they pushed the nobles away. The nobles were surprised. They did not expect humans and aliens to fight side by side. After the battle, Lyra visited the wounded. She helped heal, listened, and promised change. The story of the crawling girl who became a leader spread like wildfire. Ships from other systems brought supplies and support. More people joined the movement. Rick watched Lyra with pride. She was no longer just the scared girl from the court. She was a symbol. A hope. One night, as the stars shone bright, Lyra whispered to Rick, "Thank you for picking me up." Rick smiled softly. "You picked yourself up? I just helped." And together, they prepared for the next steps, knowing the road was long, but the future was theirs to build. Lyra stood on the bridge of Rick's ship, looking out at the planet below. It was the same place where she had once been humiliated, forced to crawl in front of the nobles. Now it looked different. The villages were alive with hope. People worked together, sharing food and stories. The air was filled with a quiet strength. Rick stood beside her, silent but steady. He had become her closest friend and protector. She felt safe with him, but also strong on her own. "We've come far," she said softly. Rick nodded. "But there's still work to do." They had returned to the capital city, the place where the royal court ruled with iron hands. This time, they were not afraid. They had allies, and more importantly, they had the truth on their side. The court was tense. The nobles had heard of the growing rebellion. They gathered in the grand hall, whispering plans to crush the movement once and for all. Lyra and Rick entered the court together. Nobles stared, shocked to see her standing tall, clothed in armor made by human and alien hands. She walked with purpose, not shame. "Lyra," the high judge said, voice cold. "You dare return." "I do," she said. "To speak for those who cannot." The nobles laughed, but Lyra raised her hand. A device on her wrist activated. Projected a live broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone could see the court, the nobles, and her. "You punished me for speaking the truth," she said, "but the truth is now known by all. Your cruelty will not be hidden. The crowd gasped. Soldiers shifted nervously. Some nobles looked angry, others scared. Rick stood beside her, ready to protect her if needed. Layra continued. We ask for peace, for justice, and for a new way. One where no one has to crawl in shame. The nobles shouted orders, but the broadcast continued. More ships appeared outside the city, supporters from many worlds. They did not come with weapons, but with voices. The court's power was breaking. Layra looked at the people in the hall. It is time to listen. One noble stepped forward. He was old and tired. Maybe it is. Double quotes slowly, others nodded. Fight was not just with weapons, it was with hearts and minds. After hours of talks, an agreement was made. The nobles promised to change their laws, to share food and resources, to end punishments like the one Layra had suffered. Rick smiled. You did it. Layra looked at him, tears in her eyes. We did it. Together, they walked out of the court. The people cheered. A new chapter had begun. But Layra knew this was only the start. Rebuilding trust would take time, while healing old wounds would take longer. She was ready for the first time in her life. She was free. Layra stood on the steps of the grand hall, looking out at the crowd gathered before her. Thousands had come from many planets to witness the moment. Some faces were familiar, others new. All eyes were filled with hope. The sun shone brightly. Above, casting light on a day that would be remembered, she wore a simple dress made from fabrics of many worlds, a symbol of unity. Beside her stood Rick, steady and calm, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Today, Layra began, her voice strong but warm, we remember where we came from. We remember the pain, the shame, and the silence. But most of all, we celebrate the courage to stand up. The crowd cheered. Voices rose like a wave. Layra's journey had been hard. From crawling in shame through a court that wanted to break her spirit to standing tall before the galaxy, she had changed. Not just herself, but the lives of many. Rick stepped forward. Humans have a saying, he said. We rise by lifting others. Layra smiled. And that is what we have done. Together. The Council of Planets had gathered for the first time in decades. They listened to the stories of those who had been silenced. Laws were rewritten. Punishments ended. Food was shared. Education open to all. Layra and Rick traveled from world to world, teaching peace, justice, and kindness. They met people who had lost hope and showed them it could return. One evening, as stars glittered in the sky, Liara spoke quietly to Rick. Do you think I will ever forget the court? Rick shook his head. No, but you don't have to live in its shadow. She nodded, feeling the weight lift from her heart. You changed more than laws, Rick said. You changed minds and hearts. Layra looked up at the stars and whispered, I was forced to crawl, but now I walk freely. I will help others do the same. The galaxy was not perfect. Challenges would come. But now there was hope, and sometimes all it takes is one person to pick another up.